Nice enough to join us here as we get ready for a big game tonight. Fox 40 Kings insider, the one and only Sean Cunningham. And Sean, my boy, thanks for being with us. You were here Sunday for the Rockets game. Then we saw what happened last night. How do you explain the Jekyll and Hyde nature of these Kings?
It's funny because I keep talking about how they sometimes look for better parts of the season like they're a 500 basketball team, but they're 10 games over 500, but they just have those types of characteristics, rise to the level of opposition. Sometimes you trick off some games. Sometimes it takes, you believe in your record a little bit and you feel like you can just flip a switch and turn it on and close out a game you're supposed to. But honestly, I just think it has to do with expectations. I think it just really is a team that a lot of these games last year, there were opponents that would take them lightly. And I think the lower tier of the NBA comes in here and knows there's a recipe to beat the Kings. And all you got to do is punch them in the mouth, disrupt Domas, and then hope they miss 3-pointers. And I think if you play a little bit physical, they tend to wilt a little bit. So I think lower echelon teams really kind of identify that and take advantage of it. And then if you're the Kings and you're going up against those higher tier teams, well, then you get a result like last night where you absolutely bring it. And it's weird because the Bucks had beat the Kings 15 straight games, dating back to the old arena, and that's a team in my mind that's just like the poster child for length and physicality and athleticism and everything that gives the Kings fits historically, and especially over these last 2 years. And to see what they did in Milwaukee in that 1-point overtime loss, I had no idea how they were in that game, and then to see the way they came out with purpose last night just goes to show you that this team is capable of being that team that they want to be.
Sean Cunningham joining us here on the Drive Guys, Sactown Sports 1140. Sean, when you look at what transpired last night, I want to focus on the defense. What stood out to you about the way the Kings played defense last night?
Yeah, I mean, they went to a lot of zone, which I know Mike Brown talks about hating zones. He says he's gone to it at times. I kind of like the fact that they embraced the 3-guard lineup so much. I mean, obviously, Keon Ellis has made a remarkable impact on just his energy. I mean, it's not even just defensively, but he's kind of that connector, kind of that guy that's been able to that guys really kind of feed off of. And I think that the fact that you've got him and Davion playing really, really well together comes in as like a 1-2 punch for this defense and what they're trying to be disruptive. And I think especially, you're already without Keegan, that's some size, and he's kind of become your best defender on this team. And then you lose Trey Lyles in that game. And oftentimes I think Mike Brown, if there was one criticism I would have of him throughout the course of the season, is sometimes I feel like he waits for the other team to do something first, and then he's very reactionary. And I think he's gotten to a place in the season so far now to where he's now being maybe the disruptor, the guy that might put a wrinkle in first and see how the other team reacts. And clearly when you start losing some of that length and you already know you're beat with length, you kind of go smaller, and it had a pretty good result last night. And I also thought, I know this Bucks team is a really, really good team, but I think he caught him at a good time. They had just got blitzed by the Warriors, and then here you come in here, and I don't think they were expecting to have to work the way they were, and I think they were going to hope to get a little bit more out of Lillard, especially with him being back in California. And Lillard looked really discombobulated to me. So I think that's still a team that's kind of finding himself, which is weird because they're such a great team record-wise. But I think the Kings needed that game. They showed they needed that game. And defensively, I think they took a huge step in that column.
Sean Cunningham, you, of course, have a unique perspective on the Kings because you've covered them for better or worse for many, many, many years. You've been a fan since before that. So, we've seen as Kings fans a litany of guys kind of on the fringes come and go, and guys that, maybe this guy's a player and nope, he's not. My point is Keon Ellis is a guy that was on the fringe and looks like, wow, this guy has an NBA future. What has impressed you the most about seeing his career arc and seeing him do what he needed to do to get to the point where he is now?
Well, the one thing that leaps off is the guy who's just always ready. I asked him earlier in the season, like, I know it seems simple enough for an athlete to just accept a role, but when you go from being, I'm a G League player, I'm a two-way player, sometimes I play, maybe I don't, and now I'm starting and now I'm out again, and having to make the most of the opportunity when it presents itself is paramount. And you go back to really what gave him the opportunity, those 2 losses in Houston, garbage time, coming out and being able to maximize those garbage minutes and have them blossom into something.
Mm.
And it's kind of a pinch me moment for him, I think, where if he looks back at it and it's like, man, this is kind of where it all started. But a guy who goes undrafted, defies the odds. I'm not sitting here saying this guy is a surefire NBA player on every team in the league, but circumstance, luck, there's so many things that factor into it. I was having some conversation with some scouts last night, and it's like, one of them had ties to the Kings, and that he'd mentioned seeing Jimmer Fredette, or we were talking about Stanley Johnson, who's now with the G League in Stockton, guys that just are kind of sometimes products of their environment. They don't sometimes go to the right places and get that opportunity and maximize it, and then stay healthy on top of all of that thing that has been. I think it's just been such a great story, and it's the guy's 5-0 as a starter. I mean, that's just so impressive, and to be able to just be a plug and play guy and talk to him about that role and having a comfort level and having peace of knowing that, like, this is my role. This is what I mean for my team. I just have to. It's not like he switches who he is in any shape or form depending upon the minutes he gets. So he's been Mr. Consistency. I know he's had a few stumbles in early part of the season, but by and large, he's just been really impressive. And it's just such a feel-good story. Good for him. And to hopefully he can see something for the Kings and kind of building that path. I think they're onto something special with him and Davion together. I really do.
Sean Cunningham joining us, hardest working man in television right there. This guy's at every event, every college event, high school. I mean, you always see this guy out there. Sean, when you look at, last night's win and the way Malik Monk played, and I know he's a free agent after this season and some decisions are going to have to be made, but, this up and down roller coaster, the one thing that seems to be refreshing to me when I listen to Malik is he understands it's been up and down. He understands that, they needed to take care of a win last night at home for this fan base. What do you make of Malik and just his status, his stature here with the fan base in Sacramento? Because I think, he's one of the fan favorites for this team.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I mean, I think I've told you guys before. I mean, this goes back to last year, right around December. I was like, hey, this team's pretty good. Like, I'm ready to kind of say this is a good team. I think it has, what you're getting from Fox and Sabonis every single night. And I kind of sound like a broken record, but I'm the guy that says Malik to me is the most important player on this team. He gives them an identity. He gives them that kind of that vibe, if you will. And as long as he's not turning the ball over, I mean, they feed off of that energy. And anytime he's a factor offensively, he's obviously out, especially whether they're home or on the road, this team just feeds off it. And it's great when they're at home because the crowd feeds off it. Yeah. He's getting ovations that are like Bobby Jackson back in the day. A guy was such a fan favorite coming off the bench. He's somebody much like Keon Ellis who embraces his role. I get asked all the time from fans and even other media members, like, well, why don't they put him in the starting lineup? I said, man, if there's one guy on this team that you do not want to mess with in terms of his role and what he means to this team, it's Malik Monk. He's completely happy with coming off the bench. He knows the role that he serves. And man, I got to tell you guys, if I'm Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox and Vivek Ranadive and Mike Brown, and I'm getting it to the end of the year, and how do you not re-sign this guy? Give him whatever the hell he wants. I mean, he is so much part of this team's identity, and he would be a very, very difficult piece to have to replace if and seeing him go into free agency. That being said, make no mistake, guys, he's going for that bag. He's going to go for the absolute max money that he can get. And if anyone's familiar with his journey, even prior to coming to the Lakers before he came to the Sacramento Kings, it's a feel good story. It's one of redemption in a way, and he's found a place in his league, and he's absolutely thriving.
Sean, I don't see in your studio there a crystal basketball, but I'm going to ask you to peer into one anyway. No. You have a unique sense, as I say, on this franchise. You've seen these teams, you've seen these seasons, the ebbs and the flows. Do you think this Kings team right now has another run left in them before the regular season ends?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I it's weird because I'm very much not the guy typically that's all rosy and optimistic, but maybe it's because there's so many people on this roller coaster that we call it game in, game out. And it's not just fans and media guys. I mean, those players kind of wear this up and down ebbs and flows, as you mentioned, with this season. And from the bird's eye view, like, I think they're honestly pretty fine. I mean, you kind of they know what they are, they know what they're not. And I do see a pathway that not only can they, maybe have a 5 to 6 game win streak before in these final 18 and kind of get a little bit of momentum going, especially because of all the home games, which I know the home cooking hasn't been the greatest for the Kings, but I do feel like there's enough moments for them still left to kind of build some momentum. And I'm not a big momentum guy, but in March, momentum seems to be kind of a thing and all across basketball in both college and pros. And I do feel that the Kings are in a pretty decent spot here. I do think they will avoid the play-in tournament, although I don't think they're afraid of it. But I do think they will avoid the play-in tournament. And I also think that, based on some matchups out here, guys, with the way the West is, I like what their record is against the Western Conference for the most part. Yeah. And I think, when you're going from playing the Bucks one night to the Lakers the next, and then 2 days later playing the Knicks, it's different than having to play playoff basketball. I do think the Kings, based on the way they play and based on some of the guys that they have on their team and the depth that they have, I think that they will be a very tough out in the playoffs, depending upon who that they play. And I could see this team make a little bit of a run in the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're going to be a perennial, conference final or even an NBA final appearance, but I can envision a first, second round. And even at maybe the ceiling, maybe it is a conference final appearance, just depending upon who they match up with and play. And honest, guys, look around the league, injuries are starting to become a major factor right now. So I don't think people should be, I think they should take the bird's eye view of this team rather than the day-to-day and kind of embrace what they are, which is 10 games over 500 in a very crowded Western Conference.
Sean Cunningham, thanks. We'll see you in a couple hours. We appreciate your time.
You got it, guys. Take it easy.
All right, Sean. See you, man.
Yeah.